Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to take a brief look at the second film in the Harry Potter series. So this is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, I've already done an intro talking about J.K. Rowling. And as of this video, I've covered both the first book in the first film and the second book. And this will be the second film. I am doing all of them. So they will come out on Monday, and the films come out on Friday. The books come out on Mondays, on through till I'm done. I believe the last video will be in November. At least that will when it comes out. So this is a very brief description. It's been a while since I've seen this film. I'm trying to think. I think I just saw it on television. The only ones I actually saw in theaters was 1, which I saw before I read the book, and 6, which I don't remember all that clearly, besides the fact it was really, really dark. And I wasn't in the United States when I saw it. I was in Bucharest. That's Romania, if you're not aware of on a map where this weird foreign country is. I was a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer. This was during training. We were in host family homes during training, and the teenager in the host family took some of us down to Bucharest to see this in a mall in Bucharest. We were staying in a town called Târgoviște, which is about an hour or so train ride outside Bucharest. So an hour, half an hour or something. It's been a long time. My Peace Corps tour, this was back when this film came out. I saw this in 2009 in theaters in Eastern Europe with subtitles. It was interesting and very dark. That's what I remember about it. It's like you couldn't see anything in book 6. I think I obviously would have read book 6, but like I mentioned, I think in some videos, possibly not till my later videos, I'm not fond of the last 3 books, so I don't know them very well. But back to the point of what this is. Now, I will reiterate, like this do with most of my Harry Potter videos, when it comes to the books, buy them used or get them from your library. Rowling does not profit from it, as far as I know. As far as I know, as of right now, libraries, used bookstores do not give money to authors for used books, as it should be, because they're a previously owned thing. The films are a little bit different. Rowling does not get royalties, as far as I know, anymore. She sold the rights, so she got some sort of lump sum. I would assume that's the way it is. They lose all control when they do this most of the time. If you don't believe me, look at things like the Princess Diaries and the Rick Riordan books. Why on earth? The Olympians. Yeah, the Percy Jackson books got destroyed. I just don't remember a Twitter thing from the actual author, I think, when it was coming out on Disney Plus. He's like, yeah, can they just not play the entire film? He does not like them because they make no sense. So, a few films, not particularly made by Disney, make a lot of sense. There's not a good transfer. Harry Potter are mixed. So, but usually when the author sells their rights, they lose all power. And J.K. Rowling really had no direct power over the films. They talked to her a lot because not all the books were written at this time. So they needed to have a close collaboration with her. But financially, she no longer has any power. The power she does have has something to do with the Fantastic Beasts series. And I know this from a book, and I probably mentioned in my last video, Harry a History, which I think is behind me somewhere. I may link that in the card if I can, in the description, if I can find it. It's written by somebody who was part of the Leaky Cauldron website prior to J.K. Rowling going crazy. And essentially what she said is, from her interviews with Rowling, what was in Rowling's contract with Universal Studios and Warner Brothers is that they can't take her world and run with it. So she'd already written Harry Potter. So these things, or the books, were being written. So the films were based on something she'd already created. The Fantastic Beasts stories are brand new tales, so she has to be involved. That's the reason she has script writing credits. Yeah. J.K. Rowling's, the first film is fine. The second film I've heard horror stories about, but I'm not going to be covering those because, again, Rowling earns money from them. So now back to what we're covering here, which is the second film. Now, these are my copies. This is a full box set of all 8 and has a bunch of extra features. Not as many as I would like. I'm big on the extra features. I'm more interested in how the films are made than half the time the films themselves. So, some of my other information, I'm a big fan of a YouTuber by the name of Dominic Noble. He did a whole Harry Potter series, again, before Rowling went crazy. He's not happy with her either, so watch his channel. He does a thing called Lost in Adaptation. It's not for children, at least not all of them. Be careful there. He's a lot better at this than I am because this is his job. This is what he does for a living. He's been doing it for many, many years. So he has the whole comparison thing down well. So I reviewed his videos before this, and these are older videos that I've watched over and over again to get some information. Most of this, however, is my opinion because, again, I've seen the movies and watched the books. So let's kind of get on to this. Now, this is the second film. Both the first and the second were done by director Chris Columbus, also known for the Home Alone films. So that's what I know him from. So he's good with family films, and that's what the Chamber of Secrets is. It's still a very good family film. It sticks pretty closely to the book. Obviously, there's some differences in all sorts of things. As I mentioned in my first review, they have a tendency to make it goofier. And of course, there's a lot of big CGI, and there are issues. But that's what I really get from it. It's far goofier, particularly with Ron Weasley. That's always been my problem with both Ron and then his brothers Fred and George, is they're far goofier in the films than they are in the books. Ron Weasley in the books is not, he's very, very intelligent. He's the youngest of 6 brothers. He's constantly trying to prove himself, so he's not entirely goofy in this. He is very smart, and in the films, you don't get that. You don't get his loyalty to Harry in a lot of cases. You don't get his intelligence and how brave he really is. I mean, that's the cornerstone of Ron Weasley, is he knows no bounds. He's extremely brave. And again, he is intelligent, not as intelligent as Hermione, but she's the bookworm of these 3. He's more of the brawn. She's the brain. Ron's the brawn. He's the one who's going to fight for you. He's also tall and lanky. So the actor who plays him, particularly as they get older, doesn't always fit. So I believe he's taller than Harry as the book gets on. He gets skinnier and tall in the books anyway. He's very, very nerdy looking. But again, he's wearing hand-me-downs because he's the youngest of 6 brothers. Nothing he owns is new. But that's kind of what I get. Again, it's goofier. The first 2 films, Chris Columbus has he's trying to appeal to a wider audience in this case. So it's far goofier. Obviously they cut stuff out. That's inevitable. It's shortened. They do give more details than this one than they did the second one or the first one. Again, when I remember rewatching the first one after I read the books, it's like, this is really, really abbreviated. It feels very, very short compared to the book. The second film, from what I remember, is better. They get more details in, but again, they have issues. I think what I read, thankfully it's been a while, they forgot Professor Sprout in their herbology teacher. I think in the first film they bring her in here, which is interesting because I think she definitely plays a part in all of the books. They screw over a lot of the teachers. They do. They screw over a lot of the teachers in these films, probably because, I don't know, budget. Though by the later films, they don't have that issue. They probably have a decent sized budget for these things because these films exploded. The books exploded. They're still pretty decent. But moving on. Trying to think what else. The acting is better. I mean, they're kids. Radcliffe is more professional because he's been doing it, as is Tom Felton, who played Malfoy, and Neville Longbottom, who they don't give as much credit for. He was a professional actor. Emma Watson and I can't remember his name, Rupert Grant, who played the other 2 are not. And I don't think Robin, that's the actress who played Ginny, I think is Robin Wright. I could be wrong with the name there. I'm going to double check because it's going to bug me what her name is. I think it's Robin Wright. I'm going to do a quick double check of Wikipedia because I'm crazy. Well, actually, no. IMDb is probably a better checking there. Do a little bit. Hold on. Do a quick check here. Get into the International Movie Database, which is a very useful thing when you're looking up certain things. Do a quick look. Chamber. Chamber of Secrets here. Search. Thank you. Actors. Here's one. Alright, where on earth is the actress who played Ginny? Let's see. Bonnie Wright, sorry. Very beautiful one. I think they cut out some of her stuff. They do give her character a look. Okay, she's very starstruck when it comes to Harry, which changes as she gets to know him over the course of the books, if you're familiar with them. And again, this film there's not much to say. They do it pretty well when it comes to certain things. I mean, they get the core story in there. I think they give Hermione a little bit more to do, and you start seeing the balance between her and Ron shift, where she definitely, well, not necessarily shift, it doesn't equalize, which is the way it is in the books. So she has more to say and is doing more things that Ron would have done, which continues throughout the rest of the book. She also seems to have superpowers. Again, something I referenced from another video. Apparently, she's able to, in the film, she's able to freeze a bunch of pixies where she's not as many in the books. It's been a while since I've read the books. This is not I mentioned this in my book review, this is not one of my favorite books in the series, so I don't know it very well. So I'm trying to remember stuff, and I'm not going to bother rereading it because I have a toddler, and reading a paperback is not going to be easy. So, but that's something you see. They get Lockhart pretty well. He's extremely arrogant. He drives everybody crazy. He's very much a caricature of any guy you see selling things on TV. So, the big hair, I'm obsessed with myself, and I'm actually very, very stupid. And that's essentially what Lockhart is. So, and you get that. I don't think you get quite much of his cruelty. You get that at the very end. When you find out what he's been doing. I'm not sure they get quite as much of the menacing feeling. Again, these films are made to be much lighter and far goofier than the books. The books even have a little bit of darkness here. Trying to think what else. Obviously, budget cuts make things shorter. They do get the spiders in. Yes, there are spiders in this film. That's a warning if you haven't seen it. Yeah, Hagrid likes large spiders. This is his backstory, how he got kicked out of school. He was blamed for basically a moaning Myrtle, who is in the first book, I believe. She might be in the second. She's just in the, she's in the second, and you see her from then on. She was actually killed during Hagrid's third year in the girls' bathroom. And she was killed by the basilisk. And she was the only death. And that, basically, they blamed the spider, which blamed Hagrid. He was actually turned in by a man by the name of Tom Riddle. If you are familiar with these films and these books, yeah, that's Voldemort. And it's his diary that's causing all sorts of problems. So, but I will get into, if you're not familiar with the story, the brief synopsis is Harry's living with the Dursleys because it's summer, right around his birthday. A little creature by the name of Dobby shows up. Dobby's a house elf. And Harry Potter's not allowed to practice magic while he's not in school because he's an underage wizard. So Dobby doesn't want Harry to go back to school because he's the house elf belonging to the Malfoys. And the Malfoys essentially intend to kill Harry Potter. That's the whole basilisk thing. They have this planned. They want Harry Potter dead because he's irritating, and he destroyed the Dark Lord, and they were very, very close to the Dark Lord. Yeah, that backfires on them multiple times. But moving on. So Dobby shows up, and now the Dursley don't know Harry's not allowed to practice magic until they have some professional guests over and Dobby practices magic. Harry gets a letter. The Dursleys realize, oh, he can't practice magic. We're going to lock him up, which is what they do. Ron can't find him, can't get in touch with him. He is worried, and him and his brothers steal a car their father magics to fly. And they come and rescue Harry. So, the film makes this far more dramatic than it is. I don't think Vernon Dursley doesn't fall out of the car. He's still in the window when they escape with Harry's trunk and his owl Hedwig in the flying car. And then they get yelled at by Molly Weasley, who's, her 3 youngest sons have flown off in a car that their father magically created to fly that could lose him his job because his job is to prevent people from actually doing that. Yeah, Mr. Weasley, his job is, he works at the Misuse of Magical Objects office, specifically to stop wizards from tormenting humans by magicking human objects, and he is obsessed with human objects. So yes, they get yelled at by Mom quite a bit. She's happy to see Harry. She's happy to see darling Harry, but yeah, she screams at her kids, and is not particularly happy with her husband, who acts very dopey and very, very confused, which is typical of their marriage. She's the put-on wife of 8 children, 7 of which are boys. And yeah, there's my infantly 1, 2, 3. Yes, 8 children. Yes, 7 boys, because you have Bill, Charlie, Percy, the twins, and then Ron, and then Ginny, who's her only girl, who she dotes on like crazy, and who's of course starstruck from Harry. They're in school. Basically, they stay at the Weasleys. There's a little bit of an incident, which the film shows, with Floo powder, which is some weird thing that Rowling came up with. The closest thing I can think of in fictions. She was a fan of Mary Poppins, going up through chimneys. But yes, using chimneys to circumvent London. Harry accidentally gets on the wrong stop because he mispronounces something and ends up in Crackton Alley, which is the dark district of Diagon Alley. Not a safe place. He's rescued by Hagrid. And I think Hermione fixes his glasses because they break. But nonetheless, they get their books, they try to go off to school, and again, Dobby shows up. He prevents Ron and Harry from getting through the barrier to get to platform 9 3/4, so because they're stupid teenage boys, they're 12 in these books, they steal the car, and they fly it to school. Again, the film makes it far more dramatic than it should be. It hits the Whomping Willow. It doesn't get captured by it. That's why it's still in one piece and running around the forest later in the book and the film. So they get in a heck of a lot of trouble. Essentially, you're told, do this again and we're going to expel you. So they're trying to be on their best behavior. Harry does not intentionally go and get into trouble. Trouble finds him, which is what happens in both the film and the book. Again, they capture themselves pretty easily. Let's see what happens next. Essentially, the next big thing is all of a sudden people start getting petrified, so they get frozen. Nobody knows why, and Harry's hearing things in the walls or something. He's hearing things that turns out to be the basilisks in the plumbing, but nobody knows quite what's going on. People getting petrified. Gilderoy Lockhart is pissing everybody off, including most of the teachers, because again, he's an arrogant idiot and he keeps getting into trouble. And they know he's an arrogant idiot. It's just, they can't keep a defense against the dark art seizure. This is the second book. The first one was possessed. The second one's an idiot. The third one's pretty good. We move on to what the heck the fourth one is, and the fifth, and the sixth, and there isn't a seventh. Moving on. So they're trying to figure out, again, similar to the first book, it's a mystery story very much. They're trying to find basically who done it. So they're going, Ron, Hermione, and Harry are going through this, along with school going on. You have Quidditch matches and all sorts of things, and they do a dueling club because, again, Lockhart is irritating. He decides to go up against Snape, who's actually a halfway decent wizard, as opposed to, Lockhart, who's not, who's a face on a book and very, very arrogant and very, very stupid. Yes, he's very, very stupid and causes all sorts of trouble. So all this is going on. Lockhart's wrecking havoc, pissing everybody off, and they're trying to figure out who's causing all this petrification. They blame Hagrid. Hagrid, I believe, this is after Hermione has been frozen. Essentially, she's been petrified. So, and Hagrid, before they take him off to Azkaban, who Harry and Ron are hiding under the invisibility cloak, says, "See, follow the spiders." Oh, Hagrid's irritated. They go find the spider that Hagrid was hiding as a third-year student, got himself expelled, and they find out that backstory. And then the spider says his children will eat them, and they get rescued by the car and get the heck out of the Forbidden Forest, because of course they do. I'm guessing Rowling didn't have an issue with spiders. Ron does. Ron's character, I'm sure she knew somebody who had very much issues with spiders. It's not hard to find. Spiders can be very, very creepy. I don't mind spiders. I just don't want them in my house. So, moving on, they figure out, one, obviously it's not Hagrid, and two, there was this guy by the name of Tom Riddle who was getting involved. Eventually, through a bunch of other things, and Hermione had written something in her hand, because she had figured it out. She wrote pipes. And that is not in the film, that is in the book. That's, I don't know what else, how they figured out, but eventually they figure out, okay, the bathroom. So they go to the girls' bathroom and talk to Moaning Myrtle, and found out, how did she die? She was crying in the bathroom stall because somebody was teasing her about her glasses. And then she opened the door and saw a flashing green light and then died. And then has been hanging out, tormenting people for the rest of eternity, since Hagrid's third year. So they find out, okay, so the passage has to be in a sink that's not working in that bathroom. So they open it up. Lockhart shows up, they force him down there, and then they fall down a hole. He gets a hold of Ron's wand, which has been broken due to the car crash. He tries to wipe their memories. It backfires and causes an explosion. So Ron and Lockhart, who now has wiped his own memory, are stuck behind rubble, and Harry has to go on alone, where he battles the snake, finds Ginny dying, gets a whole giant monologue, because of course Voldemort's spirit from the diary that basically Ginny had been slipped by the Malfoys, and Ginny had been writing in, and he basically possessed her, and she's been doing a bunch of stuff, including killing a bunch of chickens, which would kill the basilisk, because that's mythology. But essentially Ginny is dying, and he's trying to kill Harry because he realizes Harry's his adult self's enemy, and Harry is bitten by the basilisk, but the fox shows up, which is Dumbledore's phoenix. Now, Dumbledore has been kicked out of the school because they're blaming him, because he allowed Hagrid to stay. So he got kicked off by the Board of Governors, which include, of course, Malfoy, probably because Malfoy was threatening them. But Fox gives him the Sorting Hat, which they don't make clear in the film, and eventually, which then somehow magically gets Harry Gryffindor's sword, which he uses to kill the basilisk. And, of course, then basically he's still dying because he's been bit. But the phoenix starts crying on his wound, and it heals him. And then he stabs a basilisk fang into the diary, destroying it. And then everybody lives happily ever after, sort of. He wakes up Ginny, they get back to Ron and Lockhart. The phoenix gets them to Dumbledore's office, where Ron and Ginny's parents are. They take Ginny off to and I believe Ron, off to the hospital wing, along with Lockhart. And of course you have typical what happened in the last film. Dumbledore has a heart-to-heart with Harry. It's like, no, you're not being expelled. No, this is not your fault. Your loyalty to me brought you that sword and my phoenix kind of thing. Still not telling him bloody darn anything, because of course he's not. That's Dumbledore's character. That's similar. And then in the film does this as well. It covers all of this decently. And then it does do the funnier thing. Now, one of the ways to free a house elf, the only way to free a house elf, is to get them clothes. Harry knows this. So, because I think Dobby told him. So, with prompting from Dumbledore, Harry puts the diary in an old sock, and Malfoy's father is there, who's been kicked off the Board of Governors because apparently he was threatening people, and Dumbledore found out, and Dumbledore's all powerful at this point. So Harry takes the diary, puts it in the old socks, gives it to Malfoy's father, Lucius. Lucius, who's dragging Dobby behind him, throws off the sock. Dobby catches it. Dobby is free. And Dobby is happy. And Lucius is pissed because they lost their servant, who they enjoyed abusing and did all sorts of things. So the household servant of the house elf is lost and is internally grateful and loyal to Harry Potter. Which, yes, Dobby is very, very important. He shows up in the rest of the books. So his character is permanent. The CGI isn't, it's not very well done in the films. And Daniel Radcliffe, being all of 12, is not an experienced actor, and this is probably the first time he's done something like this, so apparently he's not. I didn't notice it, but apparently he's not doing it very well. You have to watch this multiple times to probably catch that he's not looking where he should be. But again, he's 12, and that's part, you kind of also blame the director on that, particularly when it comes to kids. Don't blame child actors most of the time, blame the bloody directors and the people who hired them. They couldn't act properly, they shouldn't have hired them. So, but Columbus was obsessed with, why on earth? His name, here we go, pulling it up, Daniel Radcliffe. This is who he wanted for this film. And as far as I know, he was planning possibly to direct all of them, but they changed their minds and he directed the first two, and then they moved on to some, well, we'll get there. I hate the third film. A lot of people hate the third film. I love the third book. It's probably the reason I hate the third film so much, but that's a different video. We will get there. But again, the film and the book kind of end on the same spot, though I think the Dursleys are slightly, basically, it's made very clear, I think, by the Weasleys that no, you don't get to bully Harry. Like, you don't get to lock him up, because I think they gave up on that, because obviously it didn't work. He has friends, and they come looking. So they basically, they take the train, they get back. Ginny is better. Her being possessed comes back later when she grows up and yells at Harry, I think in the fifth book, where it's like, yeah, no, you're not being possessed. I know what's being possessed. She starts growing up after this. This is kind of her coming of age moment. But otherwise, it's, as a whole, the film, obviously, it's decently loyal to the book. The child acting is just that. It's child acting for children. And again, blame the director, who should be better at this by now, considering he's been dealing with children for some time and acting. So it abbreviates, it kind of screws things up, but for adaptation's sake, it does a decent job. As a film, it does a decent job. I mean, it's entertaining. Again, this is not my favorite book, so it's a decent film. I would enjoy it if I liked the book better. And again, it sticks closer to it. A whole lot better than some of the other stuff. It doesn't get any better than this. It has a tendency to get worse. It gets worse when it comes to adaptations. When it comes to these films, it gets much, much worse. So the first two were decent, but that is going to be it for this review. I'm covering all of Harry Potter. Again, feel free to buy the DVDs new. Rent them from Amazon if you want, but remember, your digital copy is not actually yours. It's a license to use it, so they can take it back anytime they so darn well please. So if you really want to own these things, buy them physically. If you want to own the books, buy them used or borrow them from your library. Or heck, libraries have a tendency to have book sales. People turn these things in all the time, particularly the bigger cities. You can buy them used from your library, which supports your library programs, which, as somebody who used to work with libraries and library programs, I always support. So I have a bunch of, if you want to check out my, like and subscribe, check out my channel. I do homeschooling stuff. I do a lot of other book reviews. children's film reviews, trying to do some children's travel stuff as the world opens up. This video is coming out in September. It's being filmed in June. Literally the 1st of June is when this is coming out. So we're at the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, so we are trying to get traveling again. So, but again, like and subscribe if you like what I have to say. I do a lot more detailed reviews and other things, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Thank you.